I want to say good morning, and I want to welcome you guys back. And if I talk too loud or too fast and disturb your rest, please let me know, and I'll just calm down some, okay? So if you just want to lean back and relax, this will just take a few more moments, okay? All right, okay. All right, that's good. I'm going to try. I may just stay right here and just walk up and down and make eye contact just so that you guys are in the loop and you stay right here with us in the worship service. I have a lot of fond memories of Camp Bayoka, and I know it's rustic, and I heard you guys were awfully cold, and I saw on Facebook that you just wore coats the entire weekend, whether you were inside or out. So isn't it great to be in a nice, comfortable room like this? You know, it's hard. I'm so sorry, I woke Daniel up. Oh, no. You know, it's hard to predict. You know, you don't know with winter retreat, you don't know what the weather's going to be like. And I've known in the past, sometimes you have like really warm weather and really cold weather. It's hard to predict what the weather's going to be. I used to go out to the Navajo Indian Reservation quite often, and they had a unique way of predicting the weather. Now, there was one young guy, and it's really hard to get somebody to move off the reservation for any length of time. They may go temporarily, but they just come right back. They're very, very connected to the land there. And that's a real thing. That's wired into their culture as well as their religion. And there's one guy took the steps, went to the University of Phoenix, and got his degree, spent 4 years off the reservation, and then came back. And he's this bright, an intelligent, good-looking guy. And the tribal leaders just respected him so much, and he was just this really, like I said, educated guy. So they made him one of the chiefs. And as the chief, he felt, wow, really honored by this. But a couple of years went by, and the leaders came to him, and they said, Chief, we need to know. This was in the autumn time, and they said, we need to know about the winter. What do you think it's going to be? Is it going to be cold, or is it going to be okay? Is it going to be mild? And he had really become educated, but he didn't know the tribal customs. He hadn't learned the ways from his ancestors and leaders, so he didn't know how to predict the weather. But he was too embarrassed to admit that, so he just guessed. He just acted really confident, and he said, it's going to be a very cold winter. It's going to be cold. And they go, oh, and they're leaning into that. They're believing him. So he said, yeah, we need to stock up on firewood. So everybody said, okay. And they did. They went out and they chopped firewood, and they got that all ready. And he began to wonder, I hope I'm on the right track. And so he called the local weather station, and he said, listen, I need to know, what's the weather going to be like this winter? And they said, we think it's going to be pretty cold. It's going to be an exceptionally cold winter. He said, okay, great, that's what I need. So he waited a couple of weeks, called all the leaders back, and he said, I've been giving this some more thought. And I have decided it's going to be an exceptionally cold winter. You need to chop more firewood. And they said, okay, thank you. So they went back out and chopped more firewood. I better check one more time. So he called the local station again. He said, are you sure it's going to be a very cold winter? We said, oh, we're absolutely positive. Yeah, they said, we are so certain it's going to be a very, very cold winter. He said, how do you know this? How can you predict that? He said, because all the local Indians are stacking up firewood like crazy. You know what? That's the way sometimes our faith works, right? We listen to each other, and I have faith because what you've told me, and then you've got faith in what I've told you, and so that kind of builds, and we create that. And then things happen, and it sort of comes crashing down, or it doesn't, work like you thought it was going to work, or things didn't happen, and so your faith feels diminished. You think, well, I don't know about that. And it's not because of the fact that you didn't have faith. Maybe it was because it was pointed not in the right direction. Now, as I grow in my spirit, in my faith, because it's a dynamic part of us, this entity of us that can flourish and that it can grow. It doesn't stay the same. And as I grow in my faith, and as I study the Word, I realize how much more I see the need in me to dig deeper into grace. Because when I understand grace, when I understand really what it is that Jesus is doing in me, and I get that, then something remarkable begins to happen. As that awareness begins to develop, each time I go through the Scriptures, then I get a little clearer picture of what authentic faith really looks like. That becomes more apparent. So here's the big idea for this message today. Everyone exercises some kind of faith. The important thing is where you place your faith. So we're going to take that idea, and this is the action point from that. It's we will, by grace, put our faith in Jesus. So let's take a look at that. Let's look at how do we receive this? Where does it come from? Do we just work it up? I can remember going to, in West Memphis, Arkansas, I went to this whole seminar on faith, and I walked away thinking, wow, I've got to generate this. It's in me somewhere. I've got to work it out. I've got to find it. I've got to develop it. And I felt this pressure, not understanding that it was already there. It was a gift that God had placed within me, and I didn't have to manufacture that. And so I want you to know the pressure's off. If you're feeling like, oh man, every time somebody talks about faith, I feel this pressure to be faithful, to kind of grind it out or to make that happen. It's not on you to do that. He's going to do that in you and with you. So let's look at that. Faith comes by grace, and Scripture even says that God gives us a measure of faith, and that's for every person. Not even just for followers of Jesus, not even just for those of us who are in faith, so to speak. It's common to every human being has faith. And this first measure of faith is mentioned in Romans chapter 12. In verse 3, Paul says this, "For by the grace given me, I tell everyone among you not to think of himself more highly than he should think. Instead, think sensibly, as God has distributed a measure of faith to each one." He's already done that. That came with the package. That was already built into you. God created within our hearts the power or the capacity to believe the gospel so that we can find salvation. You have this part of your personality, this part of your spirit, that your human spirit, that's already leaning into that already has what one person said was a God-shaped vacuum, that's just waiting to be filled. And of course, we try to fill that with all these other things that we put our faith in, that we think, oh, that's going to give me peace, or that's going to give me satisfaction or contentment, that's going to lead me in a certain place. And we come back disappointed with that. But God has put that in you. And if you ever wonder, why am I always asking, is there more? I remember driving down Hollywood Boulevard in Memphis. I had a green Roadrunner, okay? That's a car that they don't make anymore. And but I had this Roadrunner, and I'm driving that car, and I remember turning to my friend, and I said, "Is this it?" And he goes, "Yeah, this is it." And I go, No, I'm not talking about directions. I'm talking about our life. Because we would get up, and go to work, come home, take a shower, go to the clubs, go downtown, do all these things, come back, and I said, is this all there is to our life? What made me ask that question? Why was that a concern? Why wasn't I content with that? Because somewhere in me there was something that knew there's got to be more than this. This can't be our purpose. That's faith. That's faith. It was already there. It's common to all of us. So God created that and placed that within us so that we kind of lean towards Him. The Bible also says, Scriptures say in the Old Testament, in Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 11, it says, God has put eternity in our hearts. And C.S. Lewis once said, if you don't feel at home here, maybe that's because this isn't your home. Maybe because there's a part of you that's always longing for a place where you've never been. That is your home. So God has put eternity in our hearts. So there is in all of us this seed where we long to hear and to trust him. So you have faith. You do. And I know you probably doubt that and you think, I don't have faith, Dan. It's really hard for me to be faithful. You do it all the time without even realizing it. Without even thinking about it or working through that. It's just automatic. You got up this morning and you turned on the lights or you reached for your phone and you just assumed it's going to work. You had faith in that. You turned on the faucet. You use the toaster or the microwave or your air fryer or whatever it is you do. And you began to get ready and to do all that by faith that all these things are going to work. That's faith. When you got in your car this morning, you exercised faith. And I know for some of you, it took more faith than it does for others, okay? I can remember a time where I would get ready to go to work and I'd go out and I think, oh, start, please start. And it would start. And I think, yes, that was a big deal. Or for my car to break down, usually in the most terrible place, that was not uncommon. And I think, oh, man, not now. This is not a good time. Like there would be a good time. Have you ever just been driving along and think, you know what? I'm not in a big hurry. This would be a good time to break down right now. I'd kind of like to just sit on the side of the road. There's never a good time for those kind of things. But I remember, and recently, I made a list of things I was thankful for, and I thought, I am thankful for a car that generally, not every time, but it generally starts when I get in it. It generally runs without breaking down. That's a thing for me because I just grew up driving old, beat-up junker cars, So it takes faith to do that, and many of us, everybody, you got here somehow. One of the craziest things I think we do that exercises faith is that you'll either pull in the drive-thru or you will walk into a pharmacy and a total stranger in a white coat will give you a bottle of pills and you will look on the label and you think, I can't even pronounce that. You know what? I think I'll eat them. You just take them by faith, and you could be poisoned, or you think, nope, I'm going to take this pill, and it's going to make me well, or it's going to keep me well. It's going to prevent something, or it's going to heal me from something. That's faith. That is faith. I'm not going to say any more about that, but some of you take pills and you think, well, you shouldn't have that much faith. But so we do that. When you get on a plane, think how crazy that is. A big, heavy metal tube with a couple of flaps sticking out. And you think, yeah, I think I'll go 600 miles an hour at 30,000 feet. That's a lot of faith. That's a lot of faith. You look at it and you think, I still don't know how that works. That just still seems impossible to me. When I was a kid, the movie Mary Poppins came out, and I was really little. And, if you remember, and there's been like a remake and a new thing, and she flies with an umbrella. Well, we tried that with my neighbor, Billy Ray Tomlinson. You know how every neighborhood or every school, every group has that one kid who'll just do whatever you want? Okay. That was Billy Ray. So Billy Ray, I had this red wagon. It's called a Western Flyer, I think. And my friend Freddie and I, we drug it up on top of the garage. Now, the garage had a shed built onto it, so it's a real steep pitch, and then it kind of levels off like that. And we thought, this is great. So we hooked the back of the wagon wheels on one side of the garage, the peak, so that it hung there. And we put Billy Ray in the wagon. And then we gave him an umbrella. And we said, Billy, the way this is going to work, it's the same principle for Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner and all of that. It's just going to work. You're going to go flying down this, and the wagon's going to drop, but you're going to float gently to the ground. That was our theory. And so he was willing to experiment with us like this. And back then, we didn't wear helmets for anything. We just didn't do anything that was anywhere near safe like this activity. And we had tied a ski rope to the wagon, to the front tongue of the wagon. He said, well, isn't that what I'm going to hold on to? We go, oh, no, you don't need to steer. You're just going to go straight down. So he just held onto the sides of the wagon. We got in front with the ski rope, and we just pulled. And down he came. He had so much faith, but it was misplaced. It shouldn't have been in me or in Freddie. And I'll never forget, he and the wagon both just came straight down into the trash cans. We had those old, you remember those old metal zinc trash cans? You know, he just came right into those. He's all banged up. And then we're begging him, please don't tell on us, please don't tell on us. And we got him calmed down. And Freddie and I looked at each other and said, let's try it again. We think we know what we did wrong. Let's do it again. And the crazy thing about Billy Ray, he goes, okay. So he did it. So that was faith. That's a lot of faith. You've done crazier things because you've had faith in some idea or some kind of a thing. That's faith. There's nothing unique about that. I mean, that's universal currency, right? We all have faith. And then there's spiritual faith. And you think, well, I don't have that. Okay, I may have human faith, but I don't have spiritual faith. I think everybody believes in something, even if you've chosen to believe in nothing. If you've chosen to believe that there's no God, you've got faith in that idea. The humanist has faith in himself. The Muslim has faith in the Quran and in Muhammad as a prophet. The religious person has faith that if they do enough good things and if I go to church and if I do all the things and if I learn more and more about Scripture, then God's going to like me better and I'm going to get saved or I'm going to be, and they just go along with the rituals and all the activities and those kind of things. And that's just religion. That's what they did in the Old Testament. That's just religion. And that can be a barrier actually between God, but some people have a lot of faith in that. Some people have faith in themselves or they have faith. We just scatter that in all different kind of directions with a hope. You know, the moralist says, if I can behave well enough, if my good deeds outweigh my bad deeds, then I think I'm going to be all right. And the question I always ask is, how good is good enough? How good do you have to be? That just feels real risky to me, and I don't think I'm ever going to hit that balance. So everybody exercises some kind of faith. Nothing unique about that. I was on a plane once. I was coming back from California, and I don't know which airport the last leg was. I want to say it was maybe Atlanta, but it was one of those small, those like American Eagle kind of planes. There's not a lot of seats on it. And we hit the worst turbulence that I've ever been in. I mean, it's still in my memory, even though this was several years ago. And the plane would I felt like, this is it. And I started actually thinking about, in my imagination, while we hit and everything's going to burst and all my stuff in my carry-on, and then the thought hits, wait a minute, I'm going to burst. That's going to be, why do I care if, this is going to kill my computer. Oh, my goodness. No, it's going to kill me. So I'm kind of quietly thinking that. I'm going back through the prayer of salvation in my mind, just in case, No, I'm working through that. I noticed there's one guy, he is leaned back, sound asleep. I thought, wow, he's got a lot of faith. I mean, it doesn't bother him. He's just snoring away. He doesn't care. There's a lady across the aisle from me, and she keeps exchanging glances with me. She is terrified. She's buckled up. She's looking straight ahead. She's gripping those armrests, and every now and then she'll look around like, does no one know? Is there anybody that gets this but me? We're about to die. This is it. I thought it would have been a great time for her to be my, who's your one? Hey, excuse me, ma'am, can I tell you about Jesus? Yes. She would have been prayed for anything. She's scared to death. So on the back, about 3 rows behind me, there is a tourist group from Japan. They don't understand any of the announcement the captain's making, and the flight attendants are going by. I mean, we're dropping. You ever been on a plane that just drops and you think, oh my goodness. Every time that would happen or we hit a bump or we would do this, they would just burst out laughing. They would just laugh and look at each other and they'd punch each other and then they'd wait and we'd hit another one and they'd all go, whoa, and they'd hit. And I think, oh, you folks don't understand what's happening here. It was like they thought we were on an amusement ride somewhere, like we were at Six Flags or Disney or something. It was just a lot of fun to them. Like maybe the airline said, hey, today we're going to give you a great ride, and we're going to do some fun things, and we're going to just make this a lot better than usual. They didn't get it. The crazy thing is, we all landed. All of us, whether we were terrified, asleep, we thought it was funny, or just mildly concerned about the whole situation, we all landed in the same plane at the same place at the same time. All of us made it. Because the object of our faith, at the end of the trip, the plane and the pilot were trustworthy, whether we believed them to be or not. Whether we began to remember all the stories we've heard of crashes and all of these different things, none of that mattered. There was nothing relevant except for the fact that that plane and that pilot were completely trustworthy. So we all made it. And here's what Scripture says. It says that Jesus is the author and the protector. He is the finisher. He is the perfecter of our faith. Jesus is the object of my faith. In Acts chapter 4, verse 12, it says, salvation is found in no one else, for there's no other name under heaven given to men by which we must be saved. It's just Jesus. He's the place. He's the one. He's where we go with our faith. So here's the thing. Faith isn't really about having faith and trying to figure out how to have faith. It's just believing. Faith is always about what my faith is in. You get it? That's what matters. Faith isn't adherence to a rule book. It's not a set of doctrines. It's not cliches you've heard all your life and come to depend on. And then you find out, oh, that's not true or that doesn't work. That's not what faith is. Even Paul, who could have had faith in his religious background, because Paul was a Pharisee of the Pharisees, which also meant he was highly educated. He could have said, I'm an intellectual. I'm passionate. I'm very religious. I come from the right family. I have a decent bank account. I mean, he could have said, I have my faith in all those things. Paul said, no, I've found out none of that works. In 2 Timothy 1:12, he said, I know whom I have believed. Paul put all his eggs in one basket. He put all his faith in Jesus. I think when I first began to follow Christ, I felt like faith was just this blind leap in the dark. I thought faith meant I have to believe something that's impossible no matter what everybody says, and I just choose to believe it, and I think this is going to work, and so I push Billy Ray off the garage just believing, and if I believe hard enough, and that's a theme in a lot of movies and songs and TV shows, you just got to believe. You just got to believe. You know, you can grow up and be Michael Jordan. You can grow up and play in the NFL. Yes, you can if you just work hard enough and believe. And I look in the mirror and I think, I'm never going to play in the NFL. I'm never going to play in the NBA. That's just not going to happen for me. I don't care how hard I believe it, how much faith I have, because I've directed my faith in the wrong direction or in something that God didn't plant there. God didn't put that in there. So faith, I want you to maybe disconnect from that idea that it's just this blind leap in the dark and I'm just going to have faith. You know, all faith is not the same. It's not the same. Some people think, well, it really doesn't matter what you believe. And I actually had somebody to tell me this, and maybe you have too, maybe you even think this. It doesn't matter what you believe as long as you're sincere. That's what the universalist would say. Just believe in something. You believe in your God, I'll believe in mine, and you believe in this, and you don't believe in that, and we're all going to end up okay. And, you know, I just think, what? So none of that matters? No, you've got your faith, I've got mine. Let's just get along. And I think, okay, but my faith contradicts your faith, and his faith contradicts my faith, and how are we going to work that out? We're not even going to think about it. We're just not going to worry about that. The reason that doesn't make sense, and at the end, at some point you think, wait a minute, that's because it's just not true. That idea is just not true. It matters what you believe. It matters what you put your faith in. I don't say that harshly. I know some lovely, sincere, wonderful people, but what they believe is just absolute junk. It's just stuff. I don't know how they can do it. What faith is trust in an object. Our trust, my trust is in the character of a loving God. And that object then is Jesus. He is completely trustworthy. You can trust him. Hebrews 11:1 says, the assurance of things hoped for, and the certainty of things not yet seen. My faith in Jesus isn't this faith where I think, well, he came through me before, and the Scripture says he will, but I don't know. This is really hard, or I don't think he's faced something like this before, or maybe I'm too bad, or, no, he doesn't change. In fact, this is really cool. I looked this up, that the word assurance is a word, hypostasis, which I'm sure you're impressed. Hypo means under, to be under. Hupo means on top. Hypo means under something. Stasis means stand. So this is to stand under, to understand something. What faith is it's the what that stands under the things we believe. Okay, it's not my belief that's making this happen. It's whatever I'm believing in. Whatever's standing up under there, that's what it is. That's the foundation. And that word really, it could be translated confidence. I'm confident in Jesus. And faith is why I can be confident for the things that I hope for. So what real faith is when you don't understand. You don't have all the pieces to the puzzle. You can't figure this out. Maybe you don't have the resources like, well, if I just really I'll just call Daddy and ask him to fix it, or I will do this, or I'll do that. No, faith, real faith is when you say, you know what, I don't understand, and I'm not sure what's going to happen. I don't know how this is going to play out, and it might not go my way. It might not happen the way I wish it would happen. I'm uncertain about myself. I'm uncertain about the future. You know what? I'm going to trust Jesus anyway. I'm just going to trust him. Whatever happens next, whatever that looks like, I'm not going to let go of Jesus because he's not letting go of me. And it's okay to have questions along the way. I think some of us feel like, well, if I'm really a person of faith, I'm not going to ask any questions. I might think it. I might wonder, what in the world are you doing? Or are you there? Or do you care? But I'm not going to ever actually verbalize that. You know what? It's okay. God's not scared of your questions. He can handle that. So ask him. It's all right to ask questions. Anything you have. Real faith is going to move us forward toward the object of our faith. Let me give you an example of that. And I want to give you like a biblical example, a New Testament example, because I began to think of all these stories in my life, or maybe in your life, or things I've read in history where people had great faith. And I thought, oh, wait, I know a really great event, historical event that happened that was recorded for us in the Gospels. I think it's in at least 3 of the Gospels. This one is in Luke chapter 18, and this is the story of the blind man and Jesus and their encounter. And here's what it says. As he drew near to Jericho, a blind man was sitting by the roadside begging. That's what they did. And there were probably a lot of them. There were probably several, blind guys there begging. And hearing a crowd going by, he inquired what this meant. And they told him, Jesus of Nazareth is passing by. And he cried out. And this word cried out is karuzo. It's the same word used when Jesus cried out from the cross. It is finished, same verb. And this is written in imperfect tense, which means he just kept crying out. Tears are just streaming down his face, and he's just shouting over and over and over. They can't get him to be quiet. It says, as he passed by, he cried out, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And those who were in the front rebuked him. They're like, okay, knock it off. You're being obnoxious. You just keep going, and you don't know when to quit. And then they told him, they said, be quiet. Tell him, be silent, be silent. But he cried out all the more. He wouldn't stop. And he kept saying the same thing. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And I love this. In verse 40, Jesus stopped. And he commanded him. It's written in the imperative tense. He said, I'm not moving. I'm not taking another step till I talk to that guy. He commanded them to be brought to him. And when he came near, he asked him, what do you want me to do for you? And he said, Lord, let me recover my sight. Now, this is twice in there that he talks about, let me see again, let me recover it. So I get the idea that there was a time when he could see, and now he only has the memory of that. I don't know which would be worse, to never have been able to see anything or to know what it is you miss. And all the colors and the light and the movement and everything, he goes, I remember that. I don't have it anymore. He said, so that's what I want. Let me recover my sight. And Jesus said to him, recover your sight. Your faith has made you well. And immediately he recovered his sight, and he followed him, glorifying God. And all the people, when they saw it, gave praise to God. They knew something just really, really amazing had just happened. People, wonder, I think, Jesus asked this question, what do you want me to do for you? That just kind of seems obvious what I would like for you to do. The man, he couldn't stop shouting, he couldn't stop crying, but he voices his faith directly to Jesus. And he tells him specifically, this is what I expect. Doesn't make sense to me, but I think you're really who you say you are. And I'm putting my faith in you. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Well, what do you mean by that? I want to see again. I have this one thing. This is what I want. I want to see again. And Jesus said, it's your faith that triggers this. Your faith has made you well. This isn't the only time that Jesus said this. I look back through the Gospels. There are at least 3-4 other times I found where Jesus said, your faith has made you well. He immediately recovers his sight. This guy believed in Jesus more than he believed in his present circumstances, more than he believed his own experience, more than he believed the condition that he was in. He believed Jesus. So let me ask you a question. We're gonna close up here in just a minute. What keeps you from seeing? What keeps you walking around in these dark places, unable to see the truth? Same question that Jesus asked. What do you want Jesus to do for you? What are you believing him for? What would you shout out if you were given the opportunity? What do you want Jesus to do for you? I hope that question comes back to your mind this afternoon, maybe tonight and tomorrow. You know how you get a song kind of stuck in your head and it just keeps kind of coming back? I hope this question comes back to your mind. What do I want Jesus to do for me? That's where your faith and grace are going to meet. I'm a big Oswald Chambers fan, and he said this: faith is not just believing what Jesus says, A lot of you say, I believe the Bible, and that's great. I do too. But it's believing in him, in the person of Jesus, not just what he says. Here's this thought I had this week. For most folks, your need for healing probably isn't as public as the blind man's. When Jesus asked, "What do you want me to do for you?" I think there were several people standing around. Maybe the disciples were going, he's blind. Maybe just a shot in the dark. He wants you to see. He wants to be able to see. I mean, it was just so apparent. I think for a lot of folks, that your greatest need for healing is private and secret. And maybe you've nurtured that secret, and you've kept it in that place, and you haven't exercised your faith enough, not yet, to take that step and to say, I want to move away from that. It could be that nobody knows. Maybe you've trusted a few people, but most folks would never know. That you hide the very thing, because that's our tendency. You're hiding the thing that needs healing. And you're evading trusting Jesus to be able to heal us. I'm not sure why we engage in that kind of behavior. Even something that you hate, you'll hold on to it. Whether you've gotten comfortable there, or whether it's just familiar. And trusting Jesus is scary, and it's risky, and you don't know what's going to happen next. And right before you begin to take that step of faith, you think, no, you know what? I'm going to stay stuck in this behavior or this because at least I understand, at least I know that. And I don't like it. No, I don't like it. I'm tired. Yeah, I'd love to be free of it, but not enough. Not enough to step out and to trust Jesus. Listen, I say this in love. As long as you choose to be blind because you've gotten comfortable there, you'll never see. You'll never be healed. And maybe in your blindness, you've done emotionally or spiritually what a lot of people do physically. They learn Braille. They learn how, the other senses are enhanced and they've memorized where everything is and how many steps and they rely on other people and maybe even in a sin or maybe in your flesh in places you've learned to rely on stuff. You think, I'll just stay with this. I'll just stay what I already know. You'll never be free. You're never going to know color and light and sound and movement and all the joy and the liberty that he has for you as long as you choose to be blind. One other thing about this guy is that in that culture and in that time, he would have been considered like unclean. Like something's wrong with him. He did something to cause this, especially if he had been able to see and now he can't. Well, obviously, he's being punished for something. There's some sin, there's some flaw in his character, there's some crack in his heart. He's being punished, so he's unclean. Don't get around him. And mothers would pull their children back away, and people would walk around. He never got touched. He never got hugged. He never got loved. He never got spoken to. He had been pushed back to the fringes of his community and ignored. And some of you, as busy as you are and as many people as you have around you, you kind of feel like that sometimes. He just felt left out. He felt alone in his blindness because that created a separation. Even there by the side of the road, he has to listen. He's eavesdropping. What's going on? What's happening? And somebody has to tell him Jesus is coming by, because he can't see it for himself. So he has to rely on others. And you're relying on your mama's faith or your daddy's deaconship or your, experience in all the things you've done in youth camps and Bible schools and certificates and all of that. It's just Jesus. You're always going to feel that separation. Here's the good news. As unclean as that guy was, Jesus commanded everybody, stop. That's the guy I need to engage with. You cannot be unclean enough for Jesus to ignore you. He's clean enough for all of us. It's time to stop stumbling around in the darkness of your old self-identity and give all of you back to Jesus. And He will begin to erase those old messages that play in your head. Most of them were never true to begin with. And anything that even had a grain of truth to it, the enemy is going to just pile on and layer it with lie after lie after lie until you believe something that's so wrong and so away and different from the heart of God for you. He will begin to erase that. Just believe what He says about you. Trust that His love is greater than your past. It's greater than whatever you're up to right now. It's greater than all your mistakes. It's greater than your wounded heart. It's greater than whatever happened to you. It's greater than all your sin. You're not stuck where you've been, and you're not stuck where you are today. The old is gone. The new is here. All this man said was simply, I want to see again. I want to see again. I've told you before, my first prayer was, make me like Mike. I didn't know what that meant. It's not in the Bible, not a great prayer, but Jesus knew his heart. He knows your heart. He said, I want to see again. That's all the faith he had. But he took that faith and he put it in the right place. He put it in Jesus. So here's the obvious question. Where are you going to put your faith? What are you going to do with that today? You might initiate something beautiful and different and something your heart has longed for. You just abandon whatever it is your faith's going to. Just put it in Jesus. Let's stand. Let's sing. Maybe it's time today for you to believe.